Hi everyone and welcome to episode 2 of our season 3. Now in season 3, we are talking about how you're going to stand out as a freelancer, how to get hired and grow your career. Now in this second episode, our topic today is interview tips for freelancers and virtual assistants and how to impress your clients virtually or in Zoom. Before we dive in, if this is the first time you're watching my video, welcome to my channel. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mia. I am the founder of Executive Virtual Assistant Philippines, the co-founder of Next Level Assist, and the training and onboarding manager at Strivo. Prior to being in this managerial and founder level, I was an aspiring executive virtual assistant or virtual assistant just like you. I started in the freelancing or virtual assistant industry way back in 2021 prior to being a virtual assistant or specifically an executive virtual assistant. I did not have any experience in freelancing. My experience revolved around the call center industry and also my own business. Right before the pandemic hit, I was a wedding and events planner. I still have my business, and that's MJ Weddings and Events. You can check us out if you want. Link will be in the description down below. Stay up until the end of this video because we are going to talk about some final tips on how you are going to leave a great impression once you hit that end button on your Zoom call while being interviewed by a client or a recruiter. So let's dive in. First thing that we're going to talk about is how do freelancing or virtual assistant interview differs from your traditional job interview. First, we have to make sure that we shift our mindset when going into a freelancing or a virtual assistant interview. What does that mean? It means that you are not applying when you are looking for a client or applying for a virtual assistant agency. You are not applying as an employee. You are applying as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. You are a service provider. You're offering your service and your expertise as an executive virtual assistant with expertise in inbox management, calendar, travel, or somebody in the creatives industry, video editing, social media management. So you have to make sure that you change your mindset that, okay, I am not applying as an employee, or this interview is not for an employee position, but this interview is actually for a client for my business, a client who's going to get my services because I'm a service provider. So that's how you are going to change your mindset and make sure that you are ready for each interview, thinking that this is not an employer interview, but this is me, a business owner, an entrepreneur, applying for trying to close a client. Now, let's look at also some key differences. If you're looking for a direct client, definitely there's no HR or there's no recruiter or human resource. You're actually already speaking with a business owner or a potential client. Now, when we talk about, it's going to be a little bit different when you talk about a virtual assistant company. Initially, you are applying with a recruiter or an HR, but at the end of the day, you need to still impress a client that they are going to match you with. So you have to think of it still in that entrepreneur business owner mindset. Okay? Your employer or the virtual assistant agency or recruiter is just a middleman between you and your client. So you're still going to need to sell yourself as a service provider to a client that they are trying to match you with. Another key difference is it's less about tell me about yourself. It's less about that. It's more about, can you solve this issue or this problem for us? Can you deliver the specific expectation that we need for our business? For example, we are looking for an executive virtual assistant. Can you actually deliver and solve the pain points of our executives? Can you actually support our executive? If you're looking for a videographer, are your skills really within what we expect or within our standards, right? So it's more about your output, your portfolio, and not really about who you are or telling who you are to the employer. Next, during an interview, especially with a direct client, it's a little bit more relaxed. But of course, you still need to make sure that you are professional. You have to come in with your executive presence all throughout. No matter what type of niche you are in, executive presence is very important. Why? Again, we always go back to you are a business owner, an entrepreneur when you want to become a freelancer or a virtual assistant. You have to show your client that I am my boss, I am my CEO of my services. Okay? So that's how you need to present yourself to all of the clients, whether it be a direct client or a virtual assistant company. And last but definitely not the least, you are expected to ask them questions too. Why? Because they are also applying to you. You need to find out if you are a good match, right? So you have to ask them questions as well, like, what's your core values? What are your current pain points? So it's like during your interview, you're also conducting a discovery call for this potential client, meaning you're asking them, are your pain points something that I can actually solve? If you're applying for a virtual assistant company, is your core values and your culture something that aligns with my values and culture? Who are the clients that you are trying to close? Are the clients the ideal clients that I'm also looking for? So those are the things that you can definitely ask your potential client or your recruiter. Take note, in any industry, even if it's not a virtual assistant company, even if it's an in-person corporate company, the company is also applying to you. Okay? So you have to ask questions to make sure that you actually want to join this company, right? The only difference is companies are able to advertise what they're all about and what they're offering, right? But you also have that chance during the interview to ask more probing, clarifying questions. A quote here that you have to remember during an interview, it's not just about being liked, it's about being trusted to deliver what is expected of the job position or the job role that you are applying to. Now, let's dive into some of the common questions that clients, potential clients, or virtual assistant company recruiters might ask you during an interview. Now, please take note, this is not like going to be asked all the time, but these are the most common that might get asked or have really high chances of being asked during an interview. First one, and a very important one also, is the question of, can you walk me through your background? Now, how are you going to answer this? When we talk about your background, it talks about your work experiences, previous work with clients, okay? So you have to talk about what you've already done before. Now, make sure when you talk about your previous work experiences or your background, you have to make sure what you're going to highlight is something that's relevant to the position that you are applying for. Okay? Don't just randomly say, okay, or don't just like go through the sequence of your work experience. No. Always choose the position and the job description or your responsibility that aligns with the position that you are interviewing for. And next thing is make sure that you focus on your relevant skills, just like what I said, and not the job history. And also when talking about your work experience, make sure that you highlight your impact-based output. For example, you're a social media manager. You can definitely highlight, okay, I worked with this ex-client. Of course, make sure NDA, don't say anything confidential. So I worked with this client in this industry. I onboarded this client with X amount of followers and engagement. After 2 months, the engagement grew. This is our goal, so on and so forth. So it's nicer to highlight numbers and really how you were able to impact growth of a company or a client when talking about your background or your history. Another thing that's very important when talking about your work history and experiences are really what are the daily things that you were doing? What are your daily responsibilities in terms of reaching that specific goal or reaching a KPI? You can't just say, okay, I do inbox management, I browse my clients' emails. No. So when you say, for example, you are an executive assistant, so you'll say, as an executive assistant with my previous client, my goals are to make sure that we reach or hit inbox zero on a daily basis. By doing so, I have to do inbox sweep 3 times a day, morning, midday, and end of day. I send out daily reports to my client, informing them of what are the emails that needs their attention. Aside from that, my goal is to also optimize my client's calendar. So I manage all of my clients' meetings, making sure that my client has balance between personal and professional life. Meetings are set on a specific day, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's how you're going to deliver what your previous work experience is or what your background is. Another question that might be asked is, have you worked with a client like me before? Okay, so have you worked with a similar client? Like, for example, somebody in the same industry, somebody who has the same pain points, and then you have to make sure that you have all of those notes. You have to think about, okay, who is the client that I worked before that's similar to this client now? Now, if this is the first time that you are going to work with this specific client, then you will say, you will definitely say that, no, this is actually my first work experience, or I worked in a different industry before, but the similarities are like this. Okay? You still have to make sure that when you answer a question from a client or a recruiter, you are answering based on what you think the client or the recruiter is actually looking for. Okay? So if you don't have a similar client before, what you're going to do is, no, this is the first time that I'm actually working with a client in a specific industry at this position, but your similarities with my previous clients are this, this, and that. Okay? So make sure that you just really find some similarities. Next question is very important for freelancers. What tools are you familiar with? Of course, you have to make sure to mention all of the tools that you are familiar with. Another thing that's very important to mention is you have to have read the job description and what the qualifications are. And I'm sure they already provided there a list of tools that they are using. So make sure that you also highlight that you know how to use those tools. Okay? Now, if you are applying for a position and there is a tool there that you're not familiar with, make sure that before your interview, you already familiarize yourself with that tool. You cannot come in there and say, oh, no, I haven't worked with this tool before, but I am a fast learner. I'm definitely going to, when you accept me, I'm definitely going to learn this. No. That's no longer advisable. That is no longer a good answer. What you're going to do is you're going to prepare yourself for the interview. So if, for example, you've never used HubSpot as a CRM before, but you want to apply for this position because you know you can deliver the job responsibilities, it's just that this one tool you're not familiar with. So you have to familiarize yourself with HubSpot. Sign up on HubSpot, look at all of the different features. There are a lot of available tutorials and videos that you can find online, so that once you are already in that interview, you know what you're talking about. You can definitely and confidently say that, yes, I know how to use HubSpot. It's just we have to make sure that you onboard me properly to your CRM system, because with HubSpot, you can use it in a lot of different manners or a lot of different ways. So we just have to make sure that you let me know how HubSpot works for you. Okay? That's how you're going to deliver that in whatever tool that you're going to see in the job description. Next question is, what's your availability and how do you communicate? For this question, you have to make sure that you are honest, transparent, and clear. If you cannot start by next week, you have to tell them that I still have to offboard the client, so I can start 2 weeks from now. Okay? But you also have to read the job description carefully. And this is why this is very important. You have to read the job description so that you know when they need to onboard the person that they are looking for, okay, for that position. So if it says it's immediate, then definitely they need to, if they want to hire you, you have to start immediately, like probably next Monday, okay? But you also have to be clear with them that, okay, I still need to offboard, I still need to submit my resignation and produce my 2 weeks notice or complete my 2 weeks notice. So I can definitely start 2 weeks from now. Okay, that is a very professional. Okay, and clients will look at it as very professional. And it's also a smart way for you to show that I'm not just job hunting, I'm actually planning to resign. It's just that I have to make sure I have work before I submit my resignation, which is a very smart thing to do. So you just have to be very transparent. If you really impress them during the interview, then they will definitely wait for you. In terms of communication, you just have to be open to different communication platforms. You have to tell them whether you're using Slack, Zoom, WhatsApp, Viber, Messenger, email, Google Meet, Google Chat, or whatever. You can definitely say that, okay, I use Slack primarily during this with my current client, but I can definitely adjust to whatever communication platform you prefer or you use at work. Right? You just have to tell them that you are familiar with all of the different communication platforms that are out there. So if you're not familiar yet, you better familiarize yourself now. I want to give a shout out to Strivo, the sponsor for today's episode. If you've never heard of them before, Strivo is an executive assistant and membership company helping visionary founders scale their businesses by matching them with skilled Filipino executive assistants, or as we call them at Strivo, executive partners. And yes, full disclosure, I work here with Strivo as their training and onboarding manager, which means I personally help onboard executive partners who are client-ready, confident, and trained in the systems that modern founders usually use, like EOS, ClickUp, and AI-powered tools. So if you are watching this and you are a freelancer, a virtual assistant, looking to transition into a high-level executive assistant role, or if you are already working as a VA but want to level up and work with premium clients, then check out Strivo at strivo.co. I will leave the link in the description down below. Next, let's talk about what you have to prepare or how you can prepare before the interview. This is just a very quick checklist. First is research about the client, the company, look for websites, LinkedIn profiles, socials, and of course, research about their industry as well. You have to learn more about the client and the company that you're applying for. Next is to make sure that you review the job post and tailor your responses based on the job post. So preparing for an interview doesn't just mean that you've browsed through the job description, looked at your resume, and reviewed your resume. No, preparing for an interview, especially in the freelancing world or the freelancing industry and the virtual assistant industry, you have to make sure that you have really prepared well so that you can stand out with all of the other competitions that is out there. Remember, a lot of interest already in the virtual assistant or remote work industry. So make sure that you prepare and you tailor your responses based on the job description. When we talk about tailoring your responses, is you should have already prepared that based on the job description. Like, you have to analyze, okay, based on the job description, this is what I'm going to highlight. This is how I'm going to answer these questions. Another thing is you have to prepare for scenario-based questions. And that's a totally different ball game. You have to think about, okay, what are the challenges that I experienced before? What sample scenarios can I give from my previous work experience that's relevant or related to this position that I'm applying for? Make sure that you use the STAR method when answering scenario-based questions. Next on the checklist is to make sure that you prepare your intro, your tools list, and a few sample projects. This is very important for virtual assistants. If you are an executive virtual assistant, you can also prepare the sample checklists or databases that you have created before. Just make sure that there is no confidential information that you will show on those templates, okay? It's okay to share your screen. I really am very impressed with applicants who do share their screen, especially if you are applying for a direct client. It's going to be a little bit different if you are applying for a virtual assistant company. Sometimes they wouldn't really ask you to share your screen, but if you feel like that's going to really set you apart from all of the applicants, then go ahead. Next, before the call, during an interview, make sure that you are already in the interview link 15 minutes before. Why? So that you can test your audio, your camera, your lighting, and your background. Okay? And then it also prepares you for any internet interruptions. Okay? So for example, probably you signed in 15 minutes before, and then 10 minutes or 5 minutes after that, you lost connection. So you have time to move somewhere else to get better connection or connect in another in your mobile data or your backup internet. 15 minutes before your interview, already join the Zoom call. And of course, last but definitely not the least, is dress clean, professional, even if it's virtual. Okay? Very important. Dressing up well, or half-top dressing is very important, because that's one way to show your executive presence, that you are dressed well, even if it's just for a virtual interview. Another thing that's very important, when you are already at the interview itself, don't look like this. Okay? Don't look at a screen like you're reading something else. Make sure that you look directly to the camera. Now let's move to a topic that's very, very important and a lot of applicants really just ignore. And this is what questions you should ask the client or the recruiter. We'll talk about some 4 questions. The first one, what would success look like in the first 30 days of working together? That's very, very nice, a very really good question that you can ask. The next one is, what are the biggest priorities or challenges that you are hoping to solve with my help as your EA, as your social media manager, so on and so forth? Next are, what are the tools or system that are already in place that I need to work with? And last but definitely not the least, what's your preferred communication style and schedule? If you don't know these answers yet, then you can definitely ask these questions to your potential client. But if you already know the answers to this, let's say your client already discussed all of this, then you can just go to ChatGPT and create a new list of questions. A bonus question for that is, would you like me to send a quick summary of what we discussed after this call? Now, you can ask this, or you can also just suggest and say, okay, I'm sending over a quick summary, because it shows that, I am prepared, I am the CEO of my business, of my services, and I'm sending you a summary of this so that you can, of course, review what we have discussed, and it's going to make you stand out amongst other applicants out there. And finally, I'm going to give you some tips to leave a great impression during your final interview. First tip is to make sure that you smile and maintain eye contact all throughout the call during the interview. Even if it's just virtual, like what I mentioned, always look at the webcam and don't look at your other screens. Next tip is to make sure that you speak clearly and don't rush your answers. As you can see, I really talk fast, but you always have to check yourself and say, okay, let's come back to reality, and Mia, please slow down. This is an interview. This is not a race. Take your time. I know it's sometimes an interview is 30 to 45 minutes, but for your client to really understand you, you have to make sure that you modulate your voice well and adjust the speed of your speech. Next is to also make sure that you listen actively and take notes. Now, taking notes is something that you can do on the side, like discreetly, but listening actively is very important, especially if they have like questions or if there is a specific detail that is relevant to a question that you need to answer. Next tip is, by the end of the call, make sure that you show appreciation of their time. You can do this at the beginning of the call or at the end. Let's say for the beginning, you can say, hi, let's say let's say the name of your interviewer is Diane. You can say, hi Diane, it's so nice to meet you. I've been looking forward to this interview. Thank you so much for taking your time to conduct this interview with me today. And finally, after the interview, make sure that you send a polite follow-up email. And after the interview, it's nice that you send a polite follow-up email summarizing the next steps. Okay? For example, this is a direct client, okay? And you are the one, of course, who is selling yourself and your services. So make sure after the interview, you just send a summary and a follow-up, let's say after a day, as to what their feedback is, or if they're still interviewing other applicants, or when to expect the decision. And that's it. That's your simple roadmap to showing up like a pro and really like an entrepreneur, boss babe, boss guy during a virtual or freelance interview or discovery call. Now, my question for you is, just for a discussion, what's your biggest worry when it comes to freelance interviews? You can definitely drop that in the comment section below, and I'll try to give everyone with tailored tips to improve or to lessen your worries during interviews. Now, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button down below. And if you want more content, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to my channel because I post every week freelancing, virtual assistant, career, business, lifestyle content. Next week on episode 3, we are going to talk about how to find direct clients even if you've never worked with one client before. So if you are a beginner in this freelancing or virtual assistant industry, make sure that you watch that video next week. So hit that subscribe button so that you'll be alerted once my video is up. Thank you so much everyone for watching. We'll see you again next week. This is Mia signing off. Bye.